Southampton is the largest city in the ceremonial county of Hampshire on the south coast of England, and is situated 75 miles southwest of London and 19 miles northwest of Portsmouth. Southampton is a major port and the closest city to the New Forest. It lies at the northernmost point of Southampton Water at the confluence of the River Test and River Itchen, with the River Hamble joining to the south of the urban area. The city, which is a unitary authority, has an estimated population of 253,651. The city's name is sometimes abbreviated in writing to saʊθ̆æmptən or Southampton, and a resident of Southampton is called a Soutonian. Significant employers in Southampton include the University of Southampton, Southampton Solent University, Southampton Airport, Ordnance Survey, BBC South, the NHS, ABP and Carnival UK. Southampton is noted for its association with the RMS Titanic, the Spitfire and more generally in the World War II narrative as one of the departure points for D-Day, and more recently as the home port of a number of the largest cruise ships in the world. Southampton has a large shopping centre and retail park called West Quay, which upon opening was the largest city centre shopping complex in Europe. In October 2014, the City Council approved a follow-up from the West Quay Park, called West Quay Watermark. Construction by Sir Robert McAlpine commenced in January 2015. Hammerson, the owners of the retail park, aim to have at least 1,550 people employed on its premises at year-end 2016. In the 2001 census, Southampton and Portsmouth were recorded as being parts of separate urban areas. However, by the time of the 2011 census they had merged to become the sixth largest built-up area in England with a population of 855,569. This built-up area is part of the metropolitan area known as South Hampshire, which is also known as Solent City, particularly in the media when discussing local governance organisational changes. With a population of over 1.5 million, this makes the region one of the United Kingdom's most populous metropolitan areas. History. Archaeological finds suggest that the area has been inhabited since the Stone Age. Following the Roman invasion of Britain in AD 43 and the conquering of the local Britons in 70 AD, the fortress settlement of Clausentum was established. It was an important trading port and defensive outpost of Winchester, at the site of modern Bitterne Manor. Clausentum was defended by a wall and two ditches and is thought to have contained a bathhouse. Clausentum was not abandoned until around 410. The Anglo-Saxons formed a new, larger, settlement across the Itchen centred on what is now the St. Mary's area of the city. The settlement was known as Hamich, which evolved into Hampton and then Hampton. Archaeological excavations of this site have uncovered one of the best collections of Saxon artifacts in Europe. It is from this town that the county of Hampshire gets its name. Viking raids from 840 onwards contributed to the decline of Hamich in the 9th century, and by the 10th century a fortified settlement, which became medieval Southampton, had been established. Following the Norman conquest in 1066, Southampton became the major port of transit between the then capital of England, Winchester, and Normandy. Southampton Castle was built in the 12th century, and by the 13th century Southampton had become a leading port, particularly involved in the import of French wine in exchange for English cloth and wool. Surviving remains of 12th century merchants' houses, such as King John's House and Canet's Palace, are evidence of the wealth that existed in the town at this time. In 1348, the Black Death reached England via merchant vessels calling at Southampton. The town was sacked in 1338 by French, Genoese and Monegasque ships. On visiting Southampton in 1339, Edward III ordered that walls be built to close the town. The extensive rebuilding, part of the walls dates from 1175, culminated in the completion of the western walls in 1380. Roughly half of the walls, 13 of the original towers, and 6 gates survive. The city walls include God's House Tower, built in 1417, the first purpose-built artillery fortification in England. Over the years it has been used as home to the city's gunner, the town jail, and even as storage for the Southampton Harbour Board. Until September 2011, it housed the Museum of Archaeology. The walls were completed in the 15th century. The later development of several new fortifications along Southampton Water and the Solent by Henry VIII meant that Southampton was no longer dependent upon its fortifications. On the other hand, many of the medieval buildings once situated within the town walls are now in ruins or have disappeared altogether. From successive incarnations of the motte and Bailey Castle, only a section of the Bailey Wall remains today, lying just off Castle Way. The last remains of the Franciscan Friary in Southampton, founded circa 1233 and dissolved in 1538, were swept away in the 1940s. The site is now occupied by Friary House. Elsewhere, remnants of the medieval water supply system devised by the friars can still be seen today. Constructed in 1290, the system carried water from Conduit Head some 1.7 kilometers to the site of the friary inside the town walls. The friars granted use of the water to the town in 1310 and passed on ownership of the water supply system itself in 1420. Further remains can be observed at Conduit House on Commercial Road. In 1642, during the English Civil War, a parliamentary garrison moved into Southampton. The Royalists advanced as far as Redbridge, Southampton, in March 1644 but were prevented from taking the town. During the Middle Ages, shipbuilding became an important industry for the town. Henry V's famous warship HMS Gracedieu was built in Southampton. Walter Taylor's 18th-century mechanization of the block-making process was a significant step in the Industrial Revolution. From 1904 to 2004, the Thornycroft Shipbuilding Yard was a major employer in Southampton, building and repairing ships used in the two World Wars. Prior to King Henry's departure for the Battle of Agincourt in 1415, the ringleaders of the Southampton plot, Richard, Earl of Cambridge, Henry Scrope, 3rd Baron Scrope of Masham, and Sir Thomas Grey of Hetton, were accused of high treason and tried at what is now the Red Lion public house in the High Street. They were found guilty and summarily executed outside the Bargate. Southampton has been used for military embarkation, including during 18th-century wars with the French, the Crimean War, and the Boer War. Southampton was designated No. 1 military embarkation port during the Great War and became a major centre for treating the returning wounded and POWs. It was also central to the preparations for the invasion of Europe in 1944. Southampton became a spa town in 1740. It had also become a popular site for sea bathing by the 1760s, despite the lack of a good quality beach. Innovative buildings specifically for this purpose were built at West Quay, with baths that were filled and emptied by the flow of the tide. The town experienced major expansion during the Victorian era. The Southampton Docks Company had been formed in 1835. In October 1838, the foundation stone of the docks was laid and the first dock opened in 1842. The structural and economic development of docks continued for the next few decades. The railway link to London was fully opened in May 1840. Southampton subsequently became known as the gateway to the Empire. In his 1854 book The Cruise of the Steam Yacht North Star, John Schulz described Southampton thus: "I hardly know a town that can show a more beautiful main street than Southampton, except it be Oxford. The High Street opens from the quay, and under various names it winds in a gently sweeping line for 1.5 miles, and is a very handsome width. The variety of style and color of material in the buildings affords an exhibition of outline, light and color, that I think is seldom equaled. The shops are very elegant, and the streets are kept exceedingly clean. The port was the point of departure for the Pilgrim Fathers aboard Mayflower in 1620. In 1912, the RMS Titanic sailed from Southampton. 4 in 5 of the crew on board the vessel were Soutonians, with about a third of those who perished in the tragedy hailing from the city. Southampton was subsequently the home port for the transatlantic passenger services operated by Cunard with their blue rebound liner RMS Queen Mary, and her running mate RMS Queen Elizabeth. In 1938, Southampton docks also became home to the flying boats of Imperial Airways. Southampton container terminals first opened in 1968 and has continued to expand. The Supermarine Spitfire was designed and developed in Southampton, evolving from the Schneider Trophy-winning seaplanes of the 1920s and 1930s. Its designer, R.J. Mitchell, lived in the Portswood area of Southampton, and his house is today marked with a blue plaque. Heavy bombing of the factory in September 1940 destroyed it as well as homes in the vicinity, killing civilians and workers. World War II hit Southampton particularly hard because of its strategic importance as a major commercial port and industrial area. Prior to the invasion of Europe, components for a Mulberry Harbour were built here. After D-Day, Southampton docks handled military cargo to help keep the Allied forces supplied, making it a key target of Luftwaffe bombing raids until late 1944. Southampton Docks was featured in the television show 24. Live Another Day and Day 9 p.m., 10 p.m. 630 people lost their lives as a result of the air raids on Southampton and nearly 2,000 more were injured, not to mention the thousands of buildings damaged or destroyed. Pockets of Georgian architecture survived the war, but much of the city was leveled. There has been extensive redevelopment since World War II. Increasing traffic congestion in the 1920s led to partial demolition of medieval walls around the Bargate in 1932 and 1938. However, a large portion of those walls remain. A royal charter in 1952 upgraded University College at Highfield to the University of Southampton. Southampton acquired city status, becoming the City of Southampton in 1964. Governance. After the establishment of Hampshire County Council, following the Act in 1888, Southampton became a county borough within the County of Hampshire, which meant that it had many features of a county, but governance was now shared between the corporation in Southampton and the new county council. There is a great source of confusion in the fact that the ancient Shire County, along with its associated assizes, was known as the County of Southampton or Southamptonshire. This was officially changed to Hampshire in 1959, although the county had been commonly known as Hampshire or Hampshire for centuries. Southampton became a non-metropolitan district in 1974. Southampton as a port and city has had a long history of administrative independence of the surrounding county, as far back as the reign of King John. The town and its port were removed from the writ of the King's Sheriff in Hampshire, and the rights of custom and toll were granted by the King to the burgesses of Southampton over the port of Southampton and the port of Portsmouth. This tax farm was granted for an annual fee of £200 in the charter, dated at Oroville on 29 June 1199. The definition of the Port of Southampton was apparently broader than today and embraced all of the area between Lymington and Langstone. The corporation had resident representatives in Newport, Lymington and Portsmouth. By a charter of Henry VI granted on 9 March 1446 sevenths, the mayor, bailiffs and burgesses of the towns and ports of Southampton and Portsmouth became a county incorporate and separate from Hampshire. The status of the town was changed by a later charter of Charles I by at once the formal separation from Portsmouth and the recognition of Southampton as a county. In the charter dated 27 June 1640, the formal title of the town became, the Town and County of the Town of Southampton. These charters and royal grants, of which there were many, also set out the governance and regulation of the town and port, which remained the constitution of the town until the local government organisation of the later Victorian period, which from about 1888 saw the setting up of county councils across England and Wales, including Hampshire County Council, who now took on some of the function of government in Southampton town. In this regime, the town and county of the town of Southampton also became a county borough with shared responsibility for aspects of local government. On 24 February 1964, the status changed again by a charter of Elizabeth II, creating the city and county of the City of Southampton. The city has undergone many changes to its governance over the centuries and once again became administratively independent from Hampshire County as it was made into a unitary authority in a local government reorganisation on 1 April 1997, a result of the 1992 Local Government Act. The district remains part of the Hampshire ceremonial county. Southampton City Council consists of 48 councillors, 3 for each of the 16 wards. Council elections are held in early May for 1/3 of the seats, elected for a 4-year term, so there are elections 3 years out of 4. Since the 2015 council elections, the composition of the council is: there are 3 members of parliament for the city. Royston Smith for Southampton Itchen, the constituency covering the east of the city, Dr. Alan Whitehead for Southampton Test, which covers the west of the city, and Caroline Noakes for Romsey and Southampton North, which includes a northern portion of the city. The city has a mayor and is one of the 16 cities and towns in England and Wales to have a ceremonial sheriff who acts as a deputy for the mayor. The current and 792nd mayor of Southampton is Sue Blatchford, who took up office on 4 June 2014 after previously being the sheriff of Southampton and a councillor. Linda Norris became the 577th and current sheriff of Southampton the same day. The town crier from 2004 until his death in 2014 was John Melody, who acted as master of ceremonies in the city and who possessed a cry of 104 decibels. Southampton City Council has developed twinning links with Le Havre in France, Reims-Marseille in Germany, Trieste in Italy, Hampton, Virginia in the USA, Qingdao in China, and Busan in South Korea. Geography. The geography of Southampton is influenced by the sea and rivers. The city lies at the northern tip of the Southampton Water, a deep water estuary, which is area formed at the end of the last ice age. Here, the rivers Test and Itchen converge. The Test, which has salt marsh that makes it ideal for salmon fishing, runs along the western edge of the city, while the Itchen splits Southampton in two, east and west. The city centre is located between the two rivers. Town Quay is the original public quay, and dates from the 13th century. Today's eastern docks were created in the 1830s by land reclamation of the mudflats between the Itchen and Test estuaries. The western docks date from the 1930s, when the Southern Railway Company commissioned a major land reclamation and dredging program. Most of the material used for reclamation came from dredging of Southampton Water, to ensure that the port can continue to handle large ships. Southampton Water has the benefit of a double high tide, with 2 high tide peaks, making the movement of large ships easier. This is not caused as popularly supposed by the presence of the Isle of Wight, but as a function of the shape and depth of the English Channel. In this area the general water flow is distorted by more local conditions reaching across to France. The city lies in the Hampshire Basin, which sits atop chalk beds. The River Test runs along the western border of the city, separating it from the New Forest. There are bridges over the Test from Southampton, including the road and rail bridges at Redbridge in the south and the M27 motorway to the north. The River Itchen runs through the middle of the city and is bridged in several places. The northernmost bridge, and the first to be built, is at Mansbridge, where the A27 road crosses the Itchen. The original bridge is closed to road traffic, but is still standing and open to pedestrians and cyclists. The river is bridged again at Swaddling, where Woodmill Bridge separates the tidal and non-tidal sections of the river. Further south is Cobden Bridge, which is notable as it was opened as a free bridge, and was never a toll bridge. Downstream of the Cobden Bridge is the Northam Railway Bridge, then the Northam Road Bridge, which was the first major pre-stressed concrete bridge to be constructed in the United Kingdom. The southernmost, and newest, bridge on the Itchen is the Itchen Bridge, which is a toll bridge. Areas and suburbs. Southampton is divided into council wards, suburbs, constituencies, ecclesiastical parishes, and other less formal areas. It has a number of parks and green spaces, the largest being the 148-hectare Southampton Common, parts of which are used to host the annual summer festivals, circuses and fun fairs. The Common includes Hawthorne's Urban Wildlife Centre on the former site of Southampton Zoo, a paddling pool and several lakes and ponds. Council estates are in the Western, Thornhill and Townhill Park districts. The city is ranked 96th most deprived out of all 354 local authorities in England. In the 2006-07, 1,267 residential dwellings were built in the city, the highest number for 15 years. Over 94% of these properties were flats. There are 16 electoral wards in Southampton, each consisting of longer established neighbourhoods. Settlements outside the city are sometimes considered suburbs of Southampton, including Chartwell Green, Chilworth, Nursling, Rownhams, Totton, Eastleigh and West End. The villages of Marchwood, Ashurst and Hedge End may be considered exurbs of Southampton. Climate. As with the rest of the UK, Southampton experiences an oceanic climate. Its southerly, low-lying and sheltered location ensures it is among the warmer, sunnier cities in the UK. It has held the record for the highest temperature in the UK for June at 35.6 degrees Celsius since 1976. Energy. The centre of Southampton is located above a large hot water aquifer that provides geothermal power to some of the city's buildings. This energy is processed at a plant in the West Quay region in Southampton city centre, the only geothermal power station in the UK. The plant provides private electricity for the Port of Southampton and hot water to the Southampton District Energy Scheme used by many buildings, including the West Quay Shopping Centre. In a 2006 survey of carbon emissions in major UK cities conducted by British Gas, Southampton was ranked as being one of the lowest carbon-emitting cities in the United Kingdom.